Hello and welcome to EP.2 of The Weekly Wave, where I break down all of the albums I've listened to since the previous episode, looking usually around the 15 mark. There's about 14 to get through today, and I hope everyone had a great 10 or so days since the last episode came out. Any repeat listeners, I hope you're doing well, and it's been quite a crazy one, really. I turned 24 last Thursday. Had a really good birthday. Good time having drinks out with friends. Went to go and see Alien Romulus. Several things. It was a great time all round. Very happy to be coming back recording this the following Tuesday, Tuesday the 1st of October. This might end up being a monthly thing at this rate. I've got a September episode and an October episode recorded already, so we're making good progress that way. So, let's not waste too much time. We've got 14 albums today, and look, I can't even begin to imagine where I'm going to go with this, but the first album this week is Jeremy Renner's Love and Titanium. Now, some of you may not be familiar with the fact that Jeremy Renner releases music, but I think he has pretty consistently since the early 2020s, maybe late 2010s, 2018 odd. I'm just pulling a figure out of the air. I think he's had a few albums at this point, 2 or 3 albums, and Jeremy Renner's music has been a huge part of my life, despite the fact it's only in the Lowlights section this week. He was a good percentage of the airplay in my university house. It's just a sight to behold. Where do I start? It's big, boomy, pop, super produced music. You might think, Renner, he's going to be doing the country route maybe, but no, it is pure bliss on the ears. Absolutely, and obviously, maybe some of you won't be as well versed in the Renner history as I am, but you might have been familiar with the fact that he had a terrible accident saving a child's life in real life, crushed by a snowplow. He had a long road to recovery, and this is his return music following that, I believe, unless he did anything else in the meantime. But I would have probably seen it as a big fan of a fan as I am. Love and Titanium is it's hard to gather the words. It is heartbreaking, genuinely heartbreaking. What happened to him was pretty incredible. It was a real life superhero story, and it's just a real shame that his music doesn't reach a wider audience than what it does, because there's real potential there. He's a young man. Most people know Renner. If I tell anyone who doesn't know Renner, it's Hawkeye from Avengers, among many other roles. The man's gone through a lot, and I think it's amazing that he's still making music post-injury. I hope he can make a strong return to the movie screen soon. But Love and Titanium, it was a fantastic experience listening to it with my uni friends. We got back together to listen to it, and honestly, I was almost moved to tears by Love and Titanium. The song Love and Titanium. I don't know if he's had to have some repairs to his body following his accident, but you could feel the passion bleeding through. And at the end of the day, what more can you want from music than passion? And if there's someone who's going to deliver that consistently, time after time, it's Renner. So he's on the Lowlights just because I wanted to get out of the way first. I can't say that I can't recommend this album enough to everyone. And once you've listened to this, listen to more. God bless Renner. Sorry everyone, just had to take a second just to sort my emotions out there following that. And let's get into a more similar structure to what we went with last episode. So we're in the Lowlights section. Renner, I might have just let it slip a little bit that he was in the Lowlights, but ignore me. You can't categorise Love and Titanium. And so we're going to get properly into the Lowlights now. We've got the brand new debut album by Saint Levant, Dara, and I kind of struggled with this one a little bit. It's definitely one of those where it's kind of a first album, like a debut kind of lowlight attribution, because you can hear that there's a lot of different directions this is trying to go into. It's short. I think it's under half an hour, I think, this one, and it covers just so many different grounds. You know, there's kind of like a British rap sort of influenced kind of sound to it in parts, but I think where it's more strong is where it goes more in the soulful direction, and I think it just kind of struggles to really have an identity, I think, this one, and it's just something that could really be worked on. There's interesting sounds. It's fantastically produced. There's some decent features on here as well. I think you get a Kalani feature on the standout, Ala Yemeki, and I think give that one a listen. You might see what I mean. I think it contradicts itself. It's been pulled in a lot of different directions. I think when the next music comes out by Saint Levant, maybe just a more focused direction towards one style might serve them well, because I think here there's not enough quality shown in any of the directions that it goes in to really justify giving them more of a chance if they stick that way, if that makes any sense to you. Definitely some good songs in here. It's not a waste of your time to listen to it. I think they're definitely one to watch. If they're getting that kind of feature treatment, they've probably got some form of backing in the industry. I would have thought that they'll be around for another couple of albums at least, being pushed. So keep an eye out. And I think that there's a lot to be gained from there. Best song, Ali Yameki. Please give that one a go. So next, we're going to move on to a band from the 90s, formed in the early 90s, Quasi. They're an American band, so I'm sure that Quasi will be the pronunciation of that, featuring Birds. Now, this is one that's popped up a lot of times over since I've sort of looked out for music. It's one that gets passed around a fair bit. It's one of those persistent sort of American albums of the 90s that kind of fits into that category. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You get recommended them all the time for some reason, and then you've never heard anyone talk about them in real life. So I think I've written one word for my notes here, and that's meh. They sound like they just don't know what. I don't know what has kept this album persisting through the time. It was a really unenjoyable listen for me, and I think I struggled to put a finger on exactly what it is that put me off it, but I think I've just heard so much of that style, and the stuff where they were trying to be a bit different. It was a bit like stereo labby in parts. I think the song "It's Hard to Turn Me On" that is the standout, and I heard a lot of stereo lab in that, and I'm a big stereo lab fan, so that's why that one appealed to me more. But don't waste your time on this one. I can't even recommend this one. I'm happy I've listened to it, because now when I say it recommended, I can just ignore it. I thought I was missing out on some kind of gold, but clearly that isn't the case. So featuring Birds by Quasi is probably my least enjoyable listen of the week, but not the worst album of the week, which will be the next one, which is Stand Atlantic. Their debut album as well. Lots of debuts covered this week. Was Here, which is the worst album of the week, our second worst album of the week, or / worst album of the episode. Now, Stand Atlantic, I think they're building in popularity quite a lot. They're quite a young band, and I think the problem I've got here is that they just don't settle on a style. And I think when you listen to an album where one of their more standout, unique sections of the album is the best, you're looking at a bit of an issue there, because it makes you think, what are they doing with the rest of their time? And there's a song 17 on here, which is definitely the standout. It's obviously comes from a very personal place for the singer, or is written at least about a very difficult time, like a a sort of sexual misconduct experience that they may have gone through, or they may be writing about from someone else's perspective. I don't know enough about them to be able to really clearly justify that, but or clarify that. And that song is what sort of gave this album any hope in my mind. It was a decent way through, and it really grabbed my attention when I was listening, because it goes into this super intense sort of screaming passage towards the end, which is really, really quite powerful, given the subject of the song. But then the problem with it was that it just transitioned straight into more generic pop rock. What it reminds me kind of is a bit of a cross between the One More Like Linkin Park and the new stuff that's coming out with their new vocalist, where it just feels just dated, and like it's music for right now, for some people, that no one is gonna be returning to, and that's fine for pop bands to go that direction. That's the whole point of pop music, is to be the popular music of the time that it's being released. But at the same time, it just feels like there's more that this band could give than this, and it was a disappointing listen. I didn't have too much in the way of expectations going into it, but I was aware of them, and I think it's a rough start. The art direction, you'll see the album cover on screen. It's a they've got the budget, they've got the backing, and I'm hoping that they can just concentrate their sound into something that's just a little bit more standout and memorable than this, because this was decent, like by a distance, I would say that the worst album of the week this week. On the subject of Linkin Park, I grew up a huge Linkin Park fan. Like, my favourite band was Linkin Park for 10 years, probably. Now, obviously, I was born in 2000, so I kind of watched them releasing music when I was like a young child. Minutes to Midnight, I remember being the first one that I was kind of conscious of coming out, and I still haven't listened to One More Light, because I just heard those singles and I was like, this is just, I don't want to hear this. Their music is kind of music that their early stuff, Linkin Park, has clearly withstood the test of time and is still really lauded for that kind of scene. I think people are coming back around to their old stuff now. Now as we move further and further away from new metal being at the sort of peak of its popularity. And Stand Atlantic, I just hope that they can avoid the kind of going down that Linkin Park route that they went on with that late stuff, because I know this is a new band. Obviously that was towards the end of Linkin Park's time with Chester Bennington, but it really doesn't do you any favours to release music that's not memorable and doesn't make any real cultural impact, and that's why that song 17 stood out so much, because it did have so much to say. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Disappointing. Lowlights this week, the one to check out is probably the Saint Levant album. I think he's got a lot of potential. He writes some very powerful stuff as well. He's been very vocal on some of the current world issues. So I think definitely give that album a chance and see what it does for you. Lots of different cultural influences on that one. So yeah, we'll be back in a moment with the much of a midness category for this week. Okay, so much of a midness this week. We have 5 albums that I felt fit more into this category. But yeah, again, I think once things start moving into this category, they're definitely, I mean, it goes without saying that I recommend you listen to all of the music on here, but from here onwards, please do check out all of the music that I talk about from here. We've got 10 more albums to go. It's lots of exciting, good music covered this week, so let's get into the first one. We've got another album just released in the last couple of months, last few weeks. I've kind of lost track of the time. I'm not sure exactly when this one came out, but it was definitely this year. And that is Gary Clark Jr.'s JPEG Raw. So, without wasting any time getting into it, the song from this album to listen to is, for sort of an indicator of what you get into, is Habits. It's a 9-minute closer to this album. And it's not only one of the songs of the album, or the best song of the album, it's one of the songs of the year so far for me. It's just so good. So Gary Clark Jr. is a sort of like soul singer. This album was a really, really good listen, really solid. I enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't one that I was sat there listening to super, super closely, because it does kind of fit into that. I never would call anything background music, but it's something you can listen to passively. Don't know if I've just politician answered that one and given the exact same definition for it, but definitely something like, you're not going to lose anything if you listen to it closely, but you're also, you can just have this on at any situation. There's sort of quite strong Leon Bridges vibes in the vocals. They share quite similar sort of vocal styles. So if you're into that Leon Bridges, Khruangbin, it's obviously not, the music's not as styled in the way of Khruangbin's stuff. It's a little bit less musically ambitious than that on the instrumental side, but his voice is, Gary Clark Jr.'s voice is excellent on here the whole way through. There's a very cool George Clinton feature towards the end of the album, which was really, really good. I'd say the music, it's more kind of like if you imagine Leon Bridges performing with like The Roots. You kind of get more of that kind of sound to stuff, but there's just some really good dramatic, high budget sounding music on here, and Habits is really, really strong. I really would recommend this album a lot to anyone who's interested in that sort of sound of music. One of the better albums I've listened to this year, that came out this year, and give JPEG Raw a go. And if not, you're going to give the album a go, then please do listen to the song Habits, because it's really, really worth your time. So legacy album time, we have got Supergrass's In It For The Money, and Supergrass are a English band from the 90s again. You will probably be familiar with All Right. That's the kind of like big hit that they had. They I think you could fit them into that one hit wonder kind of category if you like. But In It For The Money, 1997 release. There is a song off it, Richard III, which is not actually the song you'll be featuring, is the one to listen to, which I've listened to a lot of times. I was shown it, recommended it, and heard it in passing, and really enjoyed it. And that was kind of what drew me towards listening to this one, because it was a bit harder edge. But I would say I was a little bit misguided. So sometimes with these albums, these much more midness ones, I think in across sort of, I don't even know what would you call it? I wouldn't call this music journalism, but kind of coverage of music, scoring things, trying to like quantify the quality of an album. You go in with different standards. So Supergrass they've been like a legendary band. They've been around for a long time. They're one of those that would fit snugly on the main stage at Glastonbury, maybe not. Maybe I'm overhyping them a little bit. But people like them. People love All Right. So I went into this kind of thinking, well, what is the fuss? And I can't really see an awful lot of what would be the fuss about this album. Maybe this is just one of those that is a little bit boring to me, because outside of Richard III and the standout Going Out, there isn't a whole lot of range to this one. I think the singers are limited. He's a good songwriter, and I think he's responsible for a lot of their output. But ultimately, I think Supergrass are just one of those bands that have never fully clicked with me when I have heard their other music outside of their sort of bigger hits. And that kind of continues on with this one. I think it's a solid rock album, sort of like Britpop, sort of alt rock kind of stuff. But if you're looking at things from this time, you've got like the early Radiohead or alternative rock stuff. I don't see what you'd ever go to this for over that, unless you were exhausting that time of British rock music, pop music and stuff along those lines. So, it doesn't sound like I've got an awful lot good to say about it, but it was a solid listen. And I would say, it would be harsh to put it down to the Lowlights, because it's a little bit above that level. But at the same time, I wouldn't say to go super out of your way to be like, if there's one album from today's video I'm going to listen to, it's that Supergrass one. It's kind of like the one you go to third out of their discography, if you get what I'm saying. If you're going back to these bands and you try to listen to some historical stuff, it's not the one that I would say you'd be drawn to first. It's kind of once you've been into their other things, you go to this, and that's sort of the case here as well. I think if you want to listen to some Supergrass, go for I Should Coco. That is probably their best. That's certainly the best that I've heard. So In It For The Money. Give Going Out a try, and if you don't like that one, maybe give Richard III a try, because that is a good song. and it might be enough to drag you in, make you intrigued enough to give the full album a listen. But yeah, Supergrass in it for the money. Fits into much of a midness for this week. Our next album is a Australian band. They're another debut, and that is Speed's Only One Mode. And this is a really, really fun, short, hardcore album. What sort of put me onto this one is in Manchester we have Outbreak Festival. It's kind of like an alternative music festival once a year, but they have a autumn edition. I don't know why I said fall there. Autumn edition, which is a little bit more sort of in that hardcore. This year they've gone quite light with it. I think Citizen headlining. Citizen might be headlining, playing their Youth in full, and Speed are on earlier in the day. And this was a really, really good, fun listen that I'd really strongly recommend. Good riffs, really good, distinctive vocalist for this kind of stuff. It's harsh vocals. It's sort of like screamed, but it's maybe it was just you don't hear a lot of Australian bands in this style, or at least I've not come across many Australian hardcore bands. And maybe it's just that Australian charm that just puts them over a little bit. The song "Send Them to Sydney" I can't say that many of the songs are too far apart in quality. It's a good, consistent listen. There's not anything that's mind-blowing as like an individual track. But "Send Them to Sydney," the vocalist at the end, last 15 seconds or so, has a really good heavy breakdown, and he screams Speed in sort of the style that you might hear like a producer tag on trap music. And I really just if there was ever any chance that one of these videos could reach one of the members of the band, please can you do that on more songs, because it's one of the most hype things I think I've ever heard anywhere in music. Well, absolutely unbelievable. But please go and listen to just the last 15 seconds if you can do anything of "Send Them to Sydney." But yeah, fantastic album. I'm really excited to see what they do. I'm hoping that they're going to release consistently. They seem like quite a young band, so let's hope that they strike while the iron's hot and try and get more stuff out. But yeah, really good listen. There's no reason not to listen to this one. It's about 20 minutes. It'll barely take any time out of your day. These hardcore short albums as well, to me they pass so fast. You could listen to Habits by Gary Clark Jr. twice and you'd be through the length of half of these albums. So yeah, give Speed Only One Mode a listen. Australian hardcore band. And I assume, sticking with Australia, we've got the Murlocs, Young Blindness. So the Murlocs, they consist of two of the main contributors towards King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. It felt weird to give them their full name, yeah. King Giz. So one of the biggest undertakings I've ever sort of done musically was to listen to every King Giz album in chronological order of release. It took about 3 months to get through all of them, just sort of sprinkle them in. I didn't want to oversaturate myself with it. I wanted to keep it so I could enjoy their music and not just be snowed under by the pure quantity of music that they release. And I thought, King Giz, they're kind of legendary. I'm not the biggest King Giz fan, but they're chameleonic, to say the least, with the styles that they cover. So I was interested in what the members of King Giz would be doing in their own music and side projects and so on. And maybe it's a little bit harsh to say, but it's just a little bit of a watered down version of the psych King Giz work. Particularly the early stuff. I heard a lot more in the early stuff there, but yeah, Inside Your Mind Fuzz and albums along those lines. It was all right. It's missing the touch of King Giz's leader. I forget his name, Stuart, I think his name is. Don't get me wrong, it's as solid as most of the King Giz stuff is, but it just doesn't have that allure. You can see the album. It's they clearly know the same guy. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably going to be insulting all the Kings. They've probably got some crazy fan base. I'm not going to talk about this too much more. But the Murlocs are okay. You know, this album was pretty good. Just good tight half hour of psych pop, and you know, the song "Rolling On," give it a go. I think I probably like that the most because it was the most like a King Giz song. So, I mean, that might say a lot. I don't think this stands on its own too strongly. But yeah. There's no reason not to, if you're into your King Giz, not to give the Murlocs a go. So yeah, we'll leave that one there. And before we get into our final album of this Much of a Business category this week, and that will be Zetra, their self-titled debut album. Can you believe another debut album? And these are. Honestly, I got recommended them on my Spotify homepage. I wouldn't usually click on things through that route because I think Spotify can be very dodgy with what it's recommending and it's sponsored kind of behind the scenes stuff. But this album was really, really good and very strong Deftones sort of vibes, a little bit of that kind of Scandinavian synth metal vibe to it as well. I think these two, I was sort of reading that they've been in heavier bands in the past on the very limited information there is out there about them. And, you know, we haven't even got last names attributed to them in some places. So these two, they seem to be going down a slightly more airy, shoegaze kind of metal, just a little bit of a combination of lots of different things. But they really stick to it once they start. And it's a really good, like, consistent listen the whole way through for that reason. Everything flows together really nicely. There's no outliers. There's no kind of distracting songs that pop up out of nowhere. It's just a really good, consistent 40 minutes or so of good shoegaze, pretty much shoegaze metal. And you know, I think if you're super into the Deftones music. I wasn't calling them the Deftones then. I was just, you know, unfortunate placement of the. Just give this a go. There's a song Inseparable, which I've been listening to a lot since it came out. I find it a really, really good song in this style. And yeah, I'm really excited to see if these carry on making the same kind of stuff. If this is gonna be a long-term project or whatever they're gonna do with it. Because this was just a really good way to start for them. I want to begrudgingly say thank you to Spotify for putting these onto my homepage and onto my For You section or whatever they call it. So yeah, give Inseparable a listen. If you like Inseparable, you'll love the whole album. It was just a really, really good surprise. Probably my favourite of the albums in this category this week. All three of the albums from this year, to be fair, the Supergrass and the Murlocs were a little bit disappointing to me, but the Gary Clark Jr., Speed and Zetra albums were definitely real highlights, and you know, I think you can kind of put those three at the top of this category, feeding more into the highlights sort of section. But yeah, without further rambling, I'm going to get into the highlights for this week. We've got 5 albums. Including a best album of the week, which is brand new, a 2024 release, so stick around for that. So here we are with the highlights for this week. There's just a photo of myself from my birthday actually on the screen right now, thinking about the highlights section for this week. Having a great time, as you can see. And, you know, I'm having a good time for a reason because we've got 5 really good albums to talk about in this section this week. The first of which is Expire, A Pendulum Swings. You'll be shocked to hear another hardcore album. This one came out over a decade ago, 2012 release on this one. And, you know, there's something cool about these grainy hardcore albums from around that time. Just the pure heaviness to it, and you know, the authenticity to it. And this album's just full of really cool riffs, good vocal performances. Just good, a really, really good hardcore album. Yet again, sort of hardcore's become onto my radar a lot in the last year or so. Since I'm shortening that down. Ever since Glow On came out by Turnstile. I have been super into hardcore music, trying to find stuff. So if there's any recommendations anyone can give me in the comments or anything along those lines for hardcore music, I'd love to hear that. And then of course it will be covered on the next episode should that happen. So yeah, Expire. They have that kind of Hatebreed influence. I don't know who to really compare them to be honest. There's just been so many that sound similar. I don't want to make that sound like it's a criticism of Expire or anything along those lines, because obviously this is a really, really good album. But you know, it's just if you're into the style of music, then you're gonna like the stuff like this, because it's just really good, competent, well made hardcore music. Good fun. As I said before, nice short listen. Some songs will hit you, some might not, but overall you're going to come away from it feeling like you've really gone through a fun little hardcore show experience in your own mind. And yeah, give Expire a listen. The best song on here for me was YDN. Yeah, no notes, good hardcore. Give it a go. Following that, on the slightly less hardcore side of punk, we have got The Hive's Black and White album. 2007 release, famous for the lead single Tick Tick Boom, and you know, I'm a huge fan of The Hives. The Hives, they were a band that I kind of was aware of, and for some reason when I was younger I always grouped them in with the I thought they had like a young band's name, so whenever I saw The Hives talked about, I kind of assumed that they were in the scene with The Vamps and One Direction and bands along that line. That was just a completely ignorant completely unfounded thing that I did when I was younger, and for that reason I never listened to them ever until probably the end of last year. And at the end of last year I listened to one of their other albums. It has Hives in the title. I completely forget what it's called now. Viva Hives, something along those lines. But yeah, The Hives Black and White album. So what I enjoyed about this was I heard a lot more of Jeff Rosenstock in this. So Jeff Rosenstock is a trendy choice these days for modern punk music. Had a really, really good album out last year, but obviously you've got Worry and We Cool and all those albums that he's released under as a solo project. And this Hives album, it was obviously this album came out way before those Jeff Rosenstock releases, but it scratched that similar itch for me, and it was good to hear that somewhere else, because I've been kind of looking for some more music along the style of Jeff Rosenstock for a while, and I think that really came through in the song Return the Favour. Really, really good. I mean, obviously Tick Tick Boom, you'll have heard that probably before, and so if you're going to look for something else that isn't Tick Tick Boom, Return the Favour is the one to go to. Black and White album, got a copy of this year on Record Store Day. We had a nice black and white copy of this one, and yeah, the Hives are they're just so easy to listen to, and they're in that pop punk, but not your Green Day style pop punk, more your kind of grittier mainstream punk stuff. I'm butchering describing this one, but the Hives, you know, they're a band that have endured, and I think for good reason. Just really always get a really good solid 40 minutes out of all their releases, and this one was no different. So definitely give the Hives a go. And sticking with older releases, looking at this now, I probably could have thrown in a couple of these 2024 albums into this highlight section this week, just to add a bit more new stuff in there. But the third album in the highlights is Graveyard. They're self-titled, and Graveyard are a band that I'd heard of, but they just have one of those very, you know, the name doesn't stand out. You kind of see Graveyard and go, that sounds cool. You can't really pin down what you think it's going to be, and I was shocked to hear that how bluesy and psych this stuff was, and it was a really, really cool album, one that I never really would have gone to. I kind of was looking at bands who are performing at New Century Hall in Manchester as a way to kind of source some albums this week, and Graveyard are doing a co-headlining tour with Baroness, I think, and I'm not a big Baroness fan at all, so I thought, I'll give Graveyard a listen, see if that does more for me than what Baroness's music has, and it definitely did. I believe they're a Swedish band. They're They just have a. I mean, I think this is obviously 2011. This album came out, and I've not listened to any other music by these. I definitely will be, but I just wasn't expecting to be as blown away by this one as what I was when I listened to it. The song "Blue Soul" was absolutely excellent, and you can hear the Led Zeppelin in it, you can hear the Black Sabbath in it, and you can hear a lot more blues music that I'm not familiar enough to make comparisons directly to any bands with, but definitely this Graveyard album is worth giving a go, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And our second to last album today is probably the second to best album this week as well, is A$AP Rocky's Live Love A$AP, the 2011 debut album that he released. Now this was really interesting because actually I found there was a lot of similarities between this and the album of the week on episode 1, Days Before Rodeo, by Travis Scott. You can just hear, I think there's something so cool about listening back to this time of music, because these sort of figures, these A$AP Rockies and Travis Scott's, rappers along those lines, really kind of paved the path of the way the rap music's gone in the last 10, 15 years or so. And I think this album, you can hear so much promise in his music, and I think it's a real shame that he's not released for so long. All of A$AP Rocky's music it's always a super interesting listen. His last album, I think, is Testing. I think that was his last full release, and he's released some singles over the years since that one came out. But I would love to hear some new stuff from A$AP Rocky. I know he's got a very high-profile public life, but it'd be cool to see him return to the music and do something under his own name again. This was really cool. The one issue I did take with it a little bit is just the kind of deep voice effect that A$AP Rocky had on a lot of his earlier music is really prevalent in this album. It's not something that I've always enjoyed that much from him. I think the strength has always been in his beats, in like his actual lyricism. And when he does allow his lyricism to show more on this album, that's when it's at its best. The beats are incredible. He's always had like a really good ear for taking more out there, psychedelic, interesting stuff. And I think this was really interesting to go back and listen to. I'd never really heard much of the music from this album over the years. I'd been kind of more familiar with his later year stuff and the Long Live A$AP sort of stuff as well. I'm still yet to listen to the third of his albums. I forget what it's called now. I think it's one with LSD on it. But yeah, the song Bass on here, funnily enough, it really reminded me of the song Zombies off Travis Scott's album that we covered last week. And I think they're good companion albums. If you're in the mood for this kind of stuff, give both of those albums a listen at the same time. But it was really cool to hear where sort of A$AP Rocky originated, how his music was when he first came through, and yeah, he's had a very impressive career. Let's hope he can come back and give us something soon. So yeah, we've got one more album left. We've got our album of the week for this week, which, as I mentioned, is a brand new release, 2024 release, and that is Kublai Khan's Exhibition of Prowess. So Kublai Khan are a hardcore, metalcore, probably several other core band, and to me they've been one of the bands in the past few months that have really I've really come to appreciate a lot. They are absolutely incredible, and I'm just going to check very quickly actually if I covered them last time. No, I did not. It was Nails that I covered the last time. So Kublai Khan, they are kind of the kings of the breakdown. They do a lot of like bass only breakdowns, a lot of really just heavy in your face stuff. The vocalist, I don't think screaming really covers it. It's like a growl, like a guttural, kind of like a roar more than a scream, which I think also separates them out a lot. And this album was just, from start to finish, it was non-stop. It was just a great song after great song, great idea after great idea, amazing riff work, amazing like powerful vocal performances, better than any of the stuff I've heard from these beforehand. As much as I've enjoyed their stuff, this is definitely, I think, their peak so far. It kind of just does for me what Knocked Loose doesn't do down to the vocalist. And I think that's probably something that a lot of people share the same opinion on. Knocked Loose, I like Knocked Loose's music a lot. I think the vocalist is necessary. I think he makes them stand out, but it isn't something I can come back and listen to often, just purely because it's so demanding of your attention, the vocals. And with Kublai Khan's stuff, that definitely isn't the case. It just feels a lot more natural. And this album is one of the best albums I've listened to so far that have been released this year. The song Darwinism is, honestly, the last 40 seconds of that song, just go and give it a listen and you'll know exactly what you're in for the rest of it. It's just a complete killer album all the way through. Great use of time. The songs progress nicely, and I'm super excited to see them at Bloodstock next year with a ticket secured for that. I think they've been announced for that festival already, and that will be a real sight to behold when that comes around. And hopefully I'll be able to talk about that on here. Maybe do a Bloodstock review when that time comes around next August, getting ahead of ourselves. But I hope you enjoyed all of the my descriptions of these albums today. It's been a good set of albums. Obviously, this Kublai Khan takes album of the week, but there's a lot of albums I think you'll have heard and how I broke them down that I think are definitely worth giving a listen to. And let me know which one's your favourite if you do listen to any of them. I'll try and be back when I have accumulated another set of albums to talk about. Thanks to anyone who's listened, made it to the end of the video. Please consider subscribing if you want to hear more of this. I'm really enjoying creating these bits of content, and it would be great to see us be able to grow. As we grow, I should be able to get more music from you guys as well, anyone who's listening, and it would be great to get that kind of rapport going. So thanks everyone. I'll see you next time for episode 3, and take care.